At some point today, or maybe yesterday, or maybe last week, something got to you. Maybe it was a song. Maybe it was a memory that showed up without warning. Maybe you were watching something completely stupid and your eyes just filled up. You didn't plan it. You didn't choose it. It just happened. And the moment it did, part of your brain immediately asked, why am I crying right now? Here's what you probably told yourself. I'm emotional. I'm tired. I'm stressed. That's not wrong, but it's not the real answer either. Because crying, real emotional crying, the kind with tears, is one of the strangest things a human body does. And scientists spent decades trying to figure out why we do it. What they found completely changes how you think about every tear you've ever shed. The obvious explanation is pain.
Something hurts, you cry. Something makes you sad, you cry. Simple. Except every animal feels pain. Every animal experiences loss. Dogs grieve. Elephants mourn their dead. Chimpanzees show distress when separated from their mothers. But none of them cry emotional tears. A dog in pain will whimper. A chimpanzee that loses its mother will stop eating, stop moving, show every behavioral sign of grief. But its eyes stay dry. Yours don't. Somewhere between them and us, something changed. A system got added. A biological feature appeared that exists in no other species on this planet. The question is, why? Why did humans, and only humans, evolve the ability to cry emotionally? The answer starts not with sadness, it starts with survival.
First, let's separate the types of tears, because your body actually produces 3 completely different kinds. Basal tears. Your eyes make these constantly. Thin layer keeps your cornea from drying out. You never notice them. Reflex tears. Onion fumes, smoke, something gets in your eye. Pure physical response, completely involuntary. Emotional tears, these are different, chemically different, structurally different, and they're the ones no other animal produces. In 1982, biochemist William Frey spent years studying emotional tears under a microscope. What he found was unexpected. Emotional tears contain stress hormones, specifically leucine and kephalin, a natural painkiller, and ACTH, a hormone your body releases during high stress. You're not just leaking water when you cry emotionally, you're flushing stress chemicals out of your body. Frey's argument was simple. Emotional crying is a self-regulating system. Your body builds up stress, cortisol rises, and at a certain threshold, you cry. And when you do, those chemicals leave your body through your tears. That's why you feel physically lighter after a good cry. That's not a feeling, that's biochemistry.
But that still doesn't explain why tears specifically. Why not sweating more? Why not just breathing differently? This is where it gets interesting. Evolutionary biologist Oren Hasson at Tel Aviv University spent years studying the social function of tears. His argument? Tears weren't designed for you. They were designed for whoever was watching you. Think about it. A tear running down a face is visible from across a room. It's unmistakable. It requires zero language to understand. You see it on someone's face, and your brain immediately registers. That person is in pain. That person needs help. Hasson called tears an honest signal. In evolutionary terms, an honest signal is one that can't be faked for long. You can force a smile. You can control your voice. But making yourself cry on command, genuinely, with real tears, almost impossible. So tears became the most trustworthy distress signal humans had. And imagine a small group, 20, 30 people, living together 100,000 years ago. No language complex enough to fully explain pain. No way to clearly communicate. I am overwhelmed. I cannot do this alone. I need you right now. Except one way. A tear running down a face said all of that. Instantly, across the group, without a single word. Crying wasn't weakness. It was communication.
But here's where it gets complicated. If tears are a signal designed to trigger help from others, what happens when no one is watching? You've cried alone. Most people do. In the bathroom, in a parked car, at 2 a.m. when the house is quiet. No audience, no social signal being sent, nobody to respond. So why does it still happen? Neuroscientist Vingerhoets at Tilburg University, who has spent more time studying human crying than possibly anyone alive, found something fascinating. People cry alone almost as frequently as they cry in front of others. His explanation?
The system wasn't built for privacy because for most of human history, you were almost never truly alone. You lived in groups. You slept in groups. Solitude was rare and usually dangerous. So the crying system never developed an off switch for when you're alone. It fires anyway. The people who cry most easily, who feel that threshold lower, who tear up at songs and films and small beautiful moments, they consistently report higher levels of empathy, stronger social bonds, more satisfying relationships. The system works both ways. It signals distress outward, and it signals capacity for connection to everyone around you.
So why don't other animals have this? Primatologist Frans de Waal, who spent decades studying chimpanzee social behavior, has a theory. Chimpanzees live in groups. They form bonds. They show loyalty and grief and distress. But their social groups are small, and their social hierarchies are maintained mostly through dominance, physical strength, aggression, status displays. In that system, visible vulnerability is dangerous. Showing distress openly in a chimpanzee group can get you attacked. But somewhere in human evolution, something shifted. Our groups got more complex. Cooperation became more important than dominance. Sharing resources, coordinating hunts, raising children together. All of this required trust. And trust required honesty. A species that could signal genuine vulnerability, I am struggling, I need the group, and receive care in return rather than attack, that species survived better. Tears became possible because human social structure made vulnerability safe. We didn't just evolve to cry. We evolved a society where crying was worth something. And here you are, living in 2025, surrounded by more people than any human ancestor ever was. And still, the system runs. You cry at films because your brain cannot fully distinguish a fictional loss from a real one.
The signal fires anyway. You cry at music because certain chord progressions activate the same neural pathways as human voice. Your brain hears something that sounds like emotional expression and responds as if it's real. You cry at graduations, at weddings, at airports because your ancient social brain recognizes transition, separation, reunion, and floods the system. And sometimes you cry for no reason you can name. You're not sad exactly, not in pain, just full, like something inside needed releasing. That's Frey's stress hormones. That's Vingerhoets' threshold. That's 100,000 years of social evolution running quietly in the background of your body. Here's the full picture. You cry because your ancestors needed a way to say I need you without words. You cry because your body uses tears to flush out the chemicals stress leaves behind. You cry alone because the system was never designed for a world where you could be truly alone. And you cry at things that aren't even real because the part of your brain that processes loss is older than the part that knows the difference between a story and reality. Every tear you've ever cried was doing something, signaling, releasing, connecting.
The people who told you crying was weakness had it exactly backwards. It is one of the most sophisticated biological systems in the human body, built not for the moment you fall apart, but for the moment someone else sees you and decides to stay. If you've ever cried at something and had no idea why, drop it in the comments. No judgment, just curious.